You're listening to Bookin' Around Town with Jacques on the Audio Flow.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Jacques with Bookin' Around Town, and we are doing a special episode today. There was quite a buzz going out through social media on Monday, and you know me, I have to jump on board and see what's going on. Not that I'm the big gossip or anything, but I always like to be in the know, especially because I'm on this side of the media. And so I started doing a little bit of investigation, and I found out that there was a book that released on this week, and it was a lot of controversy, and people were, in an uproar, and it was almost like how everything was during the election. Everybody was just kind of all over the place. And so what did I do? I went and bought the book. Yeah, I bought the book because I needed to find out what was going on and what the details were. And not only that, I reached out to the author, Webster, Christy, and I invited her to be a part of the show. I really wanted to give her an opportunity to kind of chat with us about the story behind the story, what's been going on this week, and what's going to take place next. We are live, so we do have the chat window open. If you have any questions, please feel free to list them there. I do ask that everyone please be respectful. Some of the questions I may not get around to, or if they sound like they would be outside of what the purpose is for this chat, then they may not get asked. So welcome to the show, Christy. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much. Well, thank you. Again, I know it's been, I guess, a very interesting week, I guess, to put it mildly. And you had the release of The Wild that came out. And so we've got some listeners and people who are really, I guess they're kind of, there's some people who are pretty angry and outraged. And then, of course, you have some people who are really supportive of this work. So I guess the first thing I'd love to know from you is, what was the concept behind this particular story? And wait, you know what? Before we do that, I will let you all know that when I bought the book, Christy so graciously put a giant disclaimer at the beginning of the book. And I just want to read it to you guys so you'll know. Before going into this, I read the disclaimer, and that's what let me decide if I really wanted to read the book. So, and this is what it says. Disclaimer in really big red letters. The Wild is an extremely taboo story. Most will find that the themes in this book will make you incredibly uncomfortable, or maybe even offend you. This book is only for the brave, the open-minded, and the ones who crave love in even the most dismal of situations. Extreme sexual themes and violence in certain scenes, which could trigger emotional distress, are found in this story. If you are sensitive to heavy taboo themes, then this story is not for you. Seriously, you've been warned. Don't say I didn't try. You're probably going to cringe many, many, many times. Even if you are on the fence, it's probably not a good idea to proceed. However, if you're intrigued and fearless and kind of sort of trust me, then carry on. This book is for you. And so I really would love to know, you put that warning in there, but what was the concept behind this particular story?
I'm a big taboo reader. Like, that's pretty much what I gravitate towards, and I look for stuff that's not available on Amazon. I just like interesting stories that you don't hardly ever hear about. And so it's always been something that I read. And then I had read an article that was about, not similar, but it was a similar relationship, and it really it was on the internet, and it really fascinated me. And I started thinking about, like, how could there be love in that kind of situation? And as soon as I started thinking about it, these characters took life, and then I wanted to tell their story. I didn't really think it was like I was being a bad person, Yeah. I was just writing my story. Like, it morphed from there. So
you had this idea about a story basically because of something that you saw you saw online on the internet, and then it kind of just it transformed into that. And during that time, did you have discussions with people in your reader group about, because I think I saw something in the group that you asked the question about what are some taboo stories that you're interested in, or what's the most taboo? So did that kind of conversation kind of push you into saying, this is a good idea, let me, write this book and get this story out? Did that help you or encourage you to tell the story?
Yeah, for sure. Because I have a super supportive readers group, and a lot of us in there really like taboo. And so I had been dabbling in taboo. I'd been writing like little taboo kind of short stories, and based on particular themes. And then when I came up with this story, I had told them, like, I wonder if I should write this story. And everybody's like, yes, write it. And I was like, maybe I should write it under a different pen name. And they're like, no, write it under your pen name. And I was like, yeah, okay. And so, and then I wrote it. Like, as soon as the story was in my head, I wrote that book in 1 week from Sunday to Sunday. Like, I was completely consumed by that book. Mm-hmm. And I didn't eat, I didn't drink. All I did was write. And I loved that story so much. And I finished it on Sunday. I read it twice that day after I finished writing it. And then the next day I read it again. Like, I was that consumed by that book. And then I sent it to my beta readers, and they were all consumed by that book. And they had similar reactions as I did. Like, oh, I cringed during some parts I didn't know if I could continue. But, I was really interested in these characters, and I needed to know how the story played out. And I followed it to the end, and so at least they felt the same way I felt while I was writing it and then reading it. So, Are you there?
I'm here. Yes.
Okay. Sorry. So anyway, that was kind of, at that point I thought, well, dang, this is a good book. Let's do this.
And then Monday happened, or this week happened, and so you had this book, you enjoyed the story, your readers enjoyed the story, and then I'm not even sure how the word got out about what the whole concept or the taboo-ness of the story got out, and how it just went from there. Any thoughts on how that spread like a wildfire?
Well, we, as an author, we send out early copies and to bloggers and readers. And so before the book had even gone live, there was spoilers out there on Goodreads saying, this is what this is about. Mm-hmm. Don't read it, it's terrible, blah, blah, blah. And so already people right off the bat were figuring out what it was about. And then I feel like it might have been reported, like my pre-order, because Amazon allowed the book, and then after the fact they took it away. So I'm thinking it had to have been reported. But and so then it was banned on Amazon, and so then people were talking about that. Mm-hmm. And then it kind of went from there.
And then it kind of just escalated.
It did
from there. And so as somebody who kind of likes to do her research, so I did a little bit of just kind of going through certain comments and things that I've seen, and not to really, I guess, give any more spoilers about this book other than what people already know. One of the main reasons that people have sort of, I guess, not been as comfortable with the story has been the age and then the relationship that the two characters have. And so do you think that if this story was put in some different category instead of dark erotic romance, that it would have been received differently? Or do you think that it still would have been received the same way because it has this kind of taboo incest storyline?
Yeah, I think, some people had advised that maybe I should have put it in like erotic horror or something, to where it was just, a very dark kind of category. I put it in erotic romance, and I put it in all the ones that said 18 and older, so that people wouldn't go in there thinking that, I don't know what they would think. But I tried my best to keep it in a category that I thought fit the book. Mm-hmm. But I don't that's something I've been thinking about, because all of this has made me rethink everything. Like if I was, just to change this or change this, but then I think, well, that just takes away from the story that I wanted to write. Like,
Right.
I mean, I get people's issues with it or whatever, but that's not like in my head, that's not the way it is. And so when I start changing things, then those things have ripple effects for the entire story. And then I'm rewriting a whole book. And honestly, I don't want to. Like, I wrote this book the way I wanted to write it. So.
Right. And I will say that, I did read the book, and there are things that you write from both perspectives of the characters. And, a lot of people, again, are writing, well, this is wrong, and that's gross, it's disgusting. But then you have these two characters, and they're kind of both, in some parts battling with the issue that they feel like is wrong. And so you put that in the book. Is there, I guess, what was the thought behind, showcasing that they were having these a kind of a battle inside, their minds with whether this is right or wrong? What was how was it writing those combative moments and those emotions with both of the characters?
Well, that was my favorite part of writing it, because that's I'm really big on psychological elements. I love writing them. I like writing villains that have like soft moments, and then I like having heroes that mess up. Like, I like the psychological reasoning that goes behind these things, and I like discovering that in the characters and like laying that out for the reader to see, to where it's not so black and white or cut and dry. Like, that everybody has these different, there's just so many variables that you need to consider before you jump to conclusions or make judgments. And I mean, honestly, if I was in the wild with one person, it's going to be very, very lonely. It's going to be a very lone, when there's not people for thousands and thousands of miles, well, maybe not thousands, but hundreds and hundreds of miles away. And you've gone through a lot of tragedy. Who are you to say that you are going to behave a certain way? Because you don't know. Everything that you've been taught and learned has just been thrown out the window, and you're clinging to this person to survive. I mean, yeah. It's just, you got to think about the psychological elements, and that's the part that I enjoy. And that's a lot of my books will have those deep psychological elements, because they're fascinating to me. I like to know how people work.
Yeah, the book is very psychological. I think that's the term that I would use for it. And interestingly enough, I had this conversation with my mother earlier today about the book, and was just throwing some things at her, because she's got a degree in psychology, and we both went to school for psychology. And there's a lot of factors in there that it plays more of a role than could be the incest part that seems to be the big thing. The thing that seems to be what's circulating is that there are these psychological factors between both of the characters. And again, I don't want to give anything away in the book. And so how did you kind of decide, I guess, basically the age that you would go with? Because, of course, again, I think they're in Alaska. They're in Alaska, correct, Christy?
Yes.
And so Alaska, from my research, the age of consent is 16, and the girl in the book is 17. And so a lot of the concern has been that she's underage, but legally she wasn't. So, what was the thought behind, making some of these things happen when she turned 17 and not 16, when we see some of the behaviors start to formulate?
Well, I don't think it was, like I said, I literally wrote this book in a week. So there wasn't a lot of, that's just the age that I chose. Like, there wasn't a lot of forethought into, oh my God, let's make it this age because this and this and this and this. Like, no, I just thought, like, this is the character in my head. Like, she wouldn't be off to college yet. She'd still be with her family. Like, if she was older, it wouldn't make sense to me. Like it made, the way I made her made sense to the story, I guess. I don't really know. I didn't really plan on it. That's what I chose.
Yeah, and so now you're at this point where um, the book has really blown up. I would say that after the chatter went about, it's banned on Amazon. You can't get the ebook, but it's available on Smashwords. You can still get it in paperback, but now it's not on Smashwords, and so everybody's trying to get this book for whatever reason. Do you think that the scandal or the uproar in the book has kind of been more of a positive than a negative?
Well, yeah. I mean, there's always positives with every situation. And this one, I mean, there was a lot of negative, and I spent a lot of time alone crying because I didn't know what to do. Like I felt very, very overwhelmed because what was being thrown at me was not what I had set out to do. You know what I'm saying? Like in my head, whenever I wrote the book, I thought, oh, I've got these taboo readers in my group. This book's for them. Like it's not for the masses, but it somehow got out to the masses. And then, then it became this big old wild thing. And so, but there's been some really good things. There's been so many wonderful people that have supported, even if they don't read this kind of thing or have no plans to read it, they would go buy the book when it was available and in paperback or ebook or whatever way. And they would reach out to me. Like, I kid you not, I've had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of messages on my personal account and on email and on my author page. I can't even keep up with them. Like there's so many, and they're all, I mean, there's a few that are kind of mean, but they're mostly all very, very positive. And people are reaching out saying, how can I support you? This, I want to help you. And I mean, honestly, like it's overwhelming because I never really expected it. Like I didn't expect it to just be so like, all out there. And one of the good things is it has had a lot of sales. Now it's off all the sales channels, but honestly, I probably made more than I would have if it wouldn't have been banned, if that makes sense. Because because people sought it out, and then they all wanted, and they told their friends and everything. So, I mean, even though now it's banned and they can't sell it anywhere, at least I made money during that time, I guess. So that was really exciting. And one of the coolest things was before it got banned, it hit number 78 on the entire Amazon store, and I'd never ever reached top 100 before. So this was like a really exciting time for me, because that was a milestone that I had been reaching for a very long time, and it finally hit. And then it was banned, so I didn't get to enjoy it, but like I did hit it, and so I won't forget that. Like I'm really proud of that. And then the bestseller the paperback got a bestseller tag, and it was doing super well before it was taken away. And so, I mean, it really did just go wild, because it was a great name for it.
Yeah, it really did. It went wild, and it's still actually going wild now because people are trying to find the book. And I guess it kind of reminds you of, back in the day when earlier books were considered taboo, and then they were banned from school libraries and things like that. And interesting, I didn't know Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling's books were banned from libraries because they thought it was part of an occult. And so, it's just one of those things, if you're not into something or you don't like it, then you have a choice whether or not you want to support it or not. And some other themes that I found in this book is that you do mention religion and God and things like that. So during that time, was that pieces of who you are that you put into this book? I know you said you wrote it in 7 days. I mean, I don't know how many people say they, kind of write a book in 7 days and this is what happens. But is that some part of you, religion wise, in this book, not story content wise?
Yeah, every book that I write has pieces of me, and that's one of the things that my mom and my sister always enjoy when they read the book, because they pick out the stories or the or my personality or things about me within the story. And I know, contrary to everyone's belief that I'm Satan's daughter, I am a good Christian woman. And
You're
so
not Satan's daughter. We're
I
not going to
know.
have you refer to yourself with that as that.
And what's funny is my mother-in-law, she's you know, she doesn't read my books because, well, she's read a couple of them, but she doesn't read them because they're too intense for her, and she's, you know, big into her church and stuff. But you know what? She supports me. Like, and that's what I've kind of seen with this community is just because you don't read something or you don't like what's in it, you can still be supportive. You don't have to be mean and nasty and go after people. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
So what do you think? What do you think people could do if, you know, because taboo books are always going to be around. There's going to be there's every trope you can think of, and so what do you think that I guess book retailers, especially e-retailers, what do you think they could do that would, I don't know if the word protect would be the right word, but would assist people who have their right to creativity to write, you know, kind of what it is they want to write, to still be able to be sold through their channel. And we do know that places do have their rights to sell, you know, whatever it is they want. But there's no category that says taboo X or taboo XX.
yeah.
You know, there's no category for that. So what do you think they could implement that would kind of prevent some of these bannings on books?
Well, I mean, like, they should have a section of their store. I mean, you know, you go to the movie store where you rent movies and they've got all the dirty movies in the back. Like, why isn't there like a back door for all the books that people don't see as, you know, normal or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
You know, the biggest problem I have with Amazon and these other places is that they are very, very vague on their content guidelines. And it basically says anything that could be deemed offensive. And I mean, that's a really scary thing as an author, because there are no, and whenever they ban you, they don't tell you what it was. They don't tell me if it was the age. They don't tell me if it was the relationship. They don't tell me if it was the murder. Like, they don't tell me what it was that was the content. It was just the content. And so there's no way for us to fix it, even if we knew what it was. There's no support. There's no way to tell them, wait, listen to my story. There's none of that. It's just, you're done.
Yeah.
And they don't give you a chance. And there's no way to follow their guidelines. They say, if it, you know, what they deem as offensive is not offensive to me. Hardly anything offends me. Like, I'm very easygoing and I read all kinds of stuff. And books like The Wild are on Amazon. I've bought them before. I buy them all the time. That's just what I read. And I'm not going to feel like shamed for what I like to read. It's just a book. Like, I've always just liked strange things. And it's just, you know, all it takes is a person saying, well, I didn't like that book. And then it gets pulled. I mean, just simple as that. And it's scary for authors because, I mean, somebody that writes regular contemporary romance, all it takes is someone going over there and saying, well, I didn't like this, XYZ, and reports it. And then boom, it's gone. Like, there is no argument. I mean, you can try to get a hold of somebody, but that's like impossible over there. So it's very frustrating. And as far as us authors going forward, I mean, I've been trying to think about this for days now, like what I've researched other platforms and things like that. And I found another one that I may try and use. And I may try and sell straight from my website. I bought a book from a girl recently, and it was straight from her website. And I just paid her $3.99 on PayPal and got the book. And it was about, it was twincest. It was two 17-year-old twin boys that fall in love. And, it was a very interesting story. Like, I wanted to read it. And so, but I had to buy it from her website, and she was probably smarter than me. She probably didn't even try to put it on Amazon. And maybe that's what I need to do going forward, is just offer it on my website. I don't know, but I'm definitely rethinking marketing and things like that, but I don't ever want to hold back on my writing, because then it's not fun for me. It's
Right.
work. And right now it's fun. Well, this week was not that much fun, but typically I have a really good time with it. And that's why people are saying, well, you write all these books. How do you do that? I'm like, well, because it's fun for me. Like, I just write them. There's my
Mm-hmm.
stories, So I don't know. I'll have to think about it, but I can do this.
Yeah, I guess, and in all that you said, there's really, because I've even seen people's books who, they did a box set, and and Amazon wrote them back and said, well, we're taking that off, and they don't give them a reason, or they'll say this book doesn't belong to them, and there really aren't any advocates for you
Mm-mm.
guys, um, in order to go and speak on your behalf. And so I see that as, not just with taboo books, but I've seen it in other instances where authors are having trouble, with some retailer, and we know it's Amazon for the most
Yeah.
part. I don't really
Yeah.
see that much happening in some of the other places, but and so they're only banning this book. They've only banned this book, but not any of your other titles. So all your other titles are good.
No, no, no. They've banned one before.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I had a book called Preach, and it was banned about 4 days after it went live. So again, Amazon approved it, but then it got reported. And honestly, I still am flabbergasted because I don't understand. And that one I ended up taking off, retitling, renaming, and doing all these things. And then Amazon was completely fine with it. So I don't. That's why I wish I could speak to a person and not their auto responses, because those don't help me get to the bottom of it. Like, they can't explain to me what's going on so I can fix it. And I would do what I could, and it might help me in the future as I'm writing to be aware of certain things, if I knew exactly what it was. Is it a
Right.
word? Is it a keyword? Is it is it a certain situation? It's just very vague. And so that way they can just, it's a big loophole, really.
Right.
They can just get out of it just saying, well, you fell into this category of offensive things.
Yeah. And we have a listener that mentioned that, she finds it very sad that someone else gets to decide it's wrong, and that she shouldn't read it. And I think that, well, just, going through social media and seeing different comments and things like that, it's, again, it's a battle between, that's wrong, don't read it, versus, well, I have my right to read whatever I want. And there's just a lot of, I want to say, unnecessary, meanness. Is that a word?
Mm-hmm.
Meanness?
Yeah, I've used it. I've used it this week.
uh, and unnecessary. So, what do you think about, because there are people who haven't read the book who are just making comments, based off of, what they think the book is about, or what someone else has said. What's your thoughts on people who actually haven't read it but are stating opinions about the story that they haven't even read?
Well, I mean, they're just not doing their homework, and they're just speaking before they think. And, you know, I bet if you could apply this to their life and someone was to speak about them or their reputation without knowing them or without knowing the whole story, they probably wouldn't like it. Like they would feel upset that someone was making assumptions about them or their job or whatever, if without having the whole story or all of the things. And so I don't know. I feel like people get really quick to judge or get quick to anger and all this. And these are just books. These are our escape. Like I've never felt fired up over a book ever about the content or anything. Like, it's just not something, I watch all kinds of shows on TV. Like, I don't ever get offended by that kind of stuff. And maybe that's just me just being very easygoing and kind of la-di-da, that I don't think
Mm-hmm.
about other people's, but and that's why we put trigger warnings on our books. And one thing I will say about myself is I do not give away my storyline. I just don't. That's a
Mm-hmm.
big, big deal for me. And if if telling exactly what the triggers are gives away the storyline, I'm not going to do it. I'm just simply not going to do it. I feel like if I say this has all these terrible things in it, if those offend you, or if anything offends you, don't go in there and read it. So why do I have to say the exact things? Because again, I don't know specifically if this is going to be offensive to you, like, why can't I just generally say, look, you read the warning, like, here's all these things. It's probably really bad. If you have any kind of triggers, you're probably not going to like it. So just don't go there. And so when people go there anyway and then get angry at me, I don't really know how to respond except for, I told you.
You put the big warning up there, and you kind of told me at the beginning, if you're on the fence, don't read it. And then, you just mentioned that you don't want to really put out there what the triggers are. And so someone mentioned to me about the blurb that it was very non-specific. So they didn't really have an idea about what the content would be in the book. So did you purposefully decide to write the blurb where it was very non-specific?
Well, I've got almost 50 books out, and if you go back at least the last 2 years, you will see that all of my blurbs are very vague, because I do not like to give my story away. And I also feel like people have preconceived notions, and often they will think that they won't like something if they know exactly what it is going into it. And I just don't think that's fair. I mean, if I warn you that it's got heavy themes and all of these taboo things and triggers and sexual violence and murder and all these things, and you still go into it and then get mad at me for it, like, I did my job to warn you. And honestly, there's so many books out there that don't even warn. And so I feel like that was a good warning. Like, I really felt like it was over the top warning, actually. I don't feel like I have to give my story away. I feel like some of the best books are the ones that you don't really know what's going on. You go into it kind of blind, and that's my style. That's me. Like, I like to be vague, and I want you to try things out. I want you to root for villains. I want you to see that heroes aren't always so perfect. Like, that's just me. And I mean, I can only warn people so much.
I mean, like I said, I read the warning. I read the warning actually, I think 3 times before I decided that I wanted to go in and read it. But I really wanted to read it so that when you and I had this discussion, I wouldn't go into it blindly with, assumptions about, hearsay, what I heard or what somebody else posted. I wanted to go into it with my own thoughts about it, which I will do a review for it later. But I'm glad that you had a chance to come on the show and just talk to us a little bit, about the book and about the story. One thing that I will say to all the listeners, stories, there's so much more to it than what's on the surface, and that's all I'm going to say about that. If you want to read the book, is there any place else they can get this book right now, Christy, or is it just gone for good right now?
Well, I mean, it's gone from Amazon. It's gone from Smashwords now. They even terminated my account, so I can't do any books at all there anymore.
Are you serious? Wow.
Yeah, they terminated that today. I can't even look at my sales or anything. Like, I'm just vanished. I'm gone. I did email them though and say, are you going to pay me? And they said they were. So, and then they did screenshot me my sales at least. But I'm done there. Create Space, where I print the paperbacks and they distribute to all the places, suppressed my title. I can't go in and edit it. I can't order any copies for myself. It's just not available for me to touch or do anything. It's done. So I've been like very overwhelmed by it all because it's very stressful, and my brain is just scrambled and I don't know what to do. I don't know if I should touch the story or if I should look for more places. Mostly I just want it to just die down and not be so crazy. And then maybe I can offer it on my website via ebook, or some friends of mine were telling me some other paperback places that will print. I'll have to look and see like what the rules are. If not, I might consider printing locally and just doing signed paperback orders. I don't really know right now. So right now there's nowhere to get it.
Yeah.
I will try and get it back up there. And now there's, there's side characters from that story that people want a story for. And honestly, I've written about 42 pages of a story of side characters, but now I'm not really sure what to do. And I don't know what to do with it. Like, what happens when I write it? Like, where will it be accepted? So I kind of like am a little bit overwhelmed because I don't know what to do about any of this, and I don't really know who to talk to ask, or so I'm just kind of sitting on everything at the moment and just trying to re-strategize and figure out what I need to do with it. So
Yeah, it sounds like you. Again, this has been a week, a week for you, and so I guess once you get that information, if there's any listeners, I know some people in the chat wanted to know how they can get the book. I would say to just follow Kay Webster on her author page. I'm sure she'll be doing some updates, as she gets information. Another thing that I found that people, and it's back to the story, is that people have been trying to, I guess, make this story synonymous with rape and molestation, which that theme is not it's not in this book. So what has been what's your take on being able to tell people that there's a difference in this story? And I know people, I've heard, don't like it because it's put in a romantic category. They're saying it's being glorified or it's romanticized. But what's your take on being able to differentiate the difference between, rape and molestation and what's actually taking place in this story?
Well, I mean, like I said, I don't really draw those two correlations because to me it's just a story. Just like, I mean, and just like when we read Stephen King stories or whatever, and there's murder and gore and thrillers and all these things, and like nobody is all up in arms thinking the author is advocating violence and murder and all these things. And so to me it's just literally just a story that I wrote, that I didn't think that people would start trying to say that I think this is cool outside of the story and things like that. I mean, that's not what it was. And I mean, to me, the story is romantic. I mean, that's just the bottom line. It's it's a romantic story. And to me, I really honestly don't know what other category I could have put it in. And I mean, people have their opinions just like I have mine. And I honestly don't think there's anything wrong with my story. Yeah. I mean, I really don't. And that's probably why people are angry and stuff. But I mean, I honestly love the story. And like I told you before, I read these taboo elements with similar situations all the time. And never once have I thought, oh my God, this bad, evil person and, all these things. I just think, oh, that was a good story. That was interesting. That was different. And then I move along my way and I go into my, like as soon as I close the book, then I'm back to being mom and I'm doing this and I'm baking cookies. I'm not really baking cookies, but like
that sounds nice though.
yeah. It sounds like a mom thing to do, but like, I'm back to being like a person or whatever. So, and just like the people that, play the video games, I mean, then when they're done, it's just, unless you are just lacking that in your brain, like there are people that can't, but those people, I don't think they're out here reading my book as a how-to manual. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, that's not what this is about. And so, I don't know. I mean, it's sad to me that it's being portrayed that way because that's not the way I wrote it. Mm-hmm. And I didn't write it for sensationalism or anything like that. Like I could have just been happy the only person having read it. Like I just really love the story, and I don't know what that says about me except for that I feel like I read all kinds of things and I like all kinds of things. That's just me.
Yeah, well, you and I chat about some of those things that we like, and we'll just
Mm-hmm.
say, everybody is just different with their views of entertainment, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
television or movies, or books, and we both agree that it's okay for everybody to have their opinion and to enjoy what they enjoy. And one of the listeners said, "Bravo for following your heart and writing a story you truly believe in." Actually, that was my assistant, Rebecca, who wrote that. So,
Oh, how
um,
sweet.
Rebecca is trying to get the book, and I was like, "Oh, you took too long. You can't get it right now." But you can't get it right now, Rebecca. I'm sorry. Maybe
Sorry.
I'll loan you my Kindle, and you could read it off of mine or
Yeah,
something.
yeah,
But
yeah.
but I I am a big supporter in people who are creative, so authors, narrators, anybody who is in the industry. I'm a big supporter of you guys,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's my promise to all of my listeners, all my authors, is that I support you. Doesn't always mean that I'm gonna read all of your books, because I might. There
Right.
might be some that I just is not my
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
I'm still gonna support you and your work. And so, just that's why I wanted to have you on the show, because I wanted to give you an opportunity to just talk about what's been going on with the book and what's gonna take place next, which I know you're still working out. So we don't know we don't know what's next, but hopefully you'll be writing again sometime this week, maybe. Um,
Yeah. Well,
so
and anybody that knows me, I've got a bunch of books, and I write a little bit of everything, just whatever floats my boat. That's what I
mhm,
write. And so, I mean, I've got everything from mermaids to historical romances to, like just rock star like everything you
mhm,
could possibly imagine in a romance thing. I've written it. And so to me, I feel like, oh, there's something for everyone. And this was one of them things again. Like I've never written books thinking this is going to go to the whole world. I always thought, well, this will go to the, historical romance lovers, and this one will
mhm,
go to the taboo romance lovers, and this one
right,
will go to the mermaid lovers, And so here that's how I've always written my books, is just whatever floats my boat makes me happy. Then I figure somebody will like it. Well,
yeah,
that's the same thing that went here. And, I've got a bunch of books in the pipeline. Some are taboo, and let's just say there might be one releasing in like 2 or 3 weeks or so. Um,
yay,
and then I think I have 4 releases next month. So like there's not really, I mean, people can get angry and they can boycott and things like that, but tomorrow I'll have a sweet romance, and then the next day I'll have a dragon story or
yeah,
whatever. Like it's just I'm not going to stop writing stories, and it's not like I'm trying to outdo myself or to try to make people cringe. Like, what can I write that's really going to cause a stir? Like, that is not what I do. That's just not
mhm,
what I do. I just write whatever my heart tells me to write, and it's as innocent as that. So for people to make it out to be more than that, that's on them. That's how they're seeing the world. And I mean, I warn people, and I feel like everybody I feel like some people have to take responsibility too. They can't just blame it all on me.
mhm,
Like some people have to take some responsibility that they chose to go down a path that they were warned not to go down. And so at some point you have to, you know, take some accountability, because I mean, I really did. And that's why I wanted to tell. I mean, I almost put a thing that said, don't read this, because like, I really felt like, well, a lot of people may not like this, but but there were so many people that were reading it early that did love it. So it's kind of confusing to me as an author, because I don't know, like, you get all this good feedback and you think, well, this is great. This is awesome. Maybe I did do a good thing here. And then you get all this storm and you're like, well,
yeah,
dang.
yeah. Didn't see that coming, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Whoops.
and it's so interesting that so many people have made mention of other TV shows and movies and books that involve similar themes, but but they have not been, banned, or people don't really speak of it. For instance, a lot of people are big Game of Throners. We like Game of Thrones, and of course, Flowers in the Attic has been a big one that everybody seems to be mentioning. That it was huge incest themes taking place in there. So it's just, I guess, interesting, according to Cindy, is why she doesn't get why some things are okay and some aren't. And I'm wondering, do you think that people are, I don't even know how to phrase this, that people are more willing to accept certain things that are taboo versus others, versus saying, I just accept them all, but I just like to steer toward this section. Just for instance, I think I shared with you or somebody else about when 50 Shades of Grey came out, and there was this giant uproar about 50 Shades of Grey, and oh, I can't believe she wrote this book, and oh, Christian, he raped her, and he played on her because she was so young and innocent, and he took her virginity, and just so many things, that so much hate came out about 50 Shades of Grey. And it's very similar, it seems like. What's going on here is that some people will either like it or some won't. And even in 50 Shades of Grey, everybody called it BDSM, and it really didn't have a lot of BDSM in there. It talked about it, and they had some kinky sex going on, but outside of that, I've read some BDSM, and it was nothing. It was totally not even touching on BDSM. So I'm just wondering where we as people can just say we accept not to read it, but not to bash the story or the author, because it is a story. And I think, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I mean, I think that there's just certain there's certain factors that create a perfect storm for people. Maybe it's their own personal feelings or whatever, or maybe it's the character's age, or maybe it's their relationship, or maybe it's both of those combined, or whatever. And so people it affects them somehow in some way. And that's why they get fired up about this one particular thing, whereas they may watch Game of Thrones and it's okay that, there's incest or whatever on that story, or Flowers in the Attic or whatever, and they don't get angry about that. I think it just, and in the book community also, it's a very viral place. So once once people start talking about, like, you've got the people that'll love something, and then you've got all the people that'll hate something, and so people always will latch on to whoever. And I mean, at the end of the day, they're just books, and I just really wish people could, I read all kinds of books. Like, I don't just read taboo books. Like, I read all kinds of stuff. Like, I read sweet stuff and stuff that makes me cry, and I read about blue aliens, and like, I read everything. I'll read teenager books. Like, I just read it all. And so I don't really get why we just can't all just read books and be happy.
Not the blue aliens.
Yes, no, the blue aliens are good. They're so good.
Well, I might have to check out the blue aliens, but and so you kind of write across various genres, which I like, that you don't just stick to one. And so it's funny, I only have one of your books. It's crazy. I should do something about that, right? Well, two now, sorta.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And so if I were looking to find something that's kind of similar to this one, I guess, since I can't get Preach anymore, I don't even know what that book was about, but it sounds like something that I should probably read.
Yeah, I mean, I have some taboo stories, like, that I consider taboo. There's Bad, and that it's older guy, younger woman kind of situation. And then Preach turned into Easton, and now that's about a preacher who falls in love with someone he's supposed to be counseling. And then like I have a story coming out in the Drawn to Him anthology, comes out next month, and it's called Malfeasance, and it's about a judge and then this woman he's trying to help. It's also an intern kind of thing. So it's kind of taboo. And I have something coming out with Karina Press, and it's called The Brat and the Bully, and it's about a coach and a student. So, I mean, like, I like those kinds of taboo themes. They're interesting to me. And so, like, those are all ones that if you kind of liked the Wild, those you would go for. Those are all more lighthearted. The Wild's a little more psychological and deep and dark. If you're more, like, into the deep and dark stuff, Whispers and the Roars has a very hardcore psychological element to it. This is War Baby. It's got some crazy wild things in there. Sweet Jane. It just depends. I mean, if what you're into, you know, like there's all these. And so when people say, "Oh, how do I like your books? Where should I start?" And I'm like, "Well, let's tell me what you read first, and then we'll go from there." Because like I don't want to like send them off to the Wild if you know they need to be reading about mermaids or something. So
I've never read a mermaid book, by the way, so maybe I should pick that up.
Well, they actually have sex in mermaid form now. Imagine that.
Well, yeah.
I bet you're wondering how that happens, huh? It's magical.
In my head, I'm trying to figure that. I mean, do they have fins? I mean, they got a tail and stuff. I want to know how that works.
It's magical, and there's dolphins present and accounted for. So I really feel like you should read that.
I think I should read it just because in my head I'm trying to picture how that all works out. I mean, magical mermaid sex sounds pretty darn interesting.
It's magical. I mean, what more can you say?
Yeah, I don't know. What more can we say? Like nothing.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna try to check that out. And ramp up my beef up my K Webster library here so I can see what else is on the other side of the Wild. Again, I will be putting out my review probably sometime later this week. If there are listeners out there who are interested in the book, like I said, be sure that you are following Kay Webster on her Facebook page. She does have a website, and you have Twitter, right? I think.
Yep.
Okay. And then just if you've read the book, let her know what you thought about it. If we can be respectful with that, that's always important. I'm always a big advocate for respecting everybody. So if you like it, you like it. If you didn't like it, I'm sure that's fine with her too. As long as you can be respectful about it. But I thank you so much for being on the show with us today. And
well, thank you for having me.
You are welcome to come back anytime. And I'd like to come back and chat with you after I read some of the other books, so I could pick your brain and say, well, what were you thinking when you made this? This?
I got a scary brain. It's just not a place that nobody wants to hang out.
Well, you know what? I find that there are a lot of people who write on the scary version of their brain. And, if that is what keeps you creatively happy, then, I'm all about you being happy. And that's important.
And I will say that the reason I write on such a broad spectrum, and people will say, well, you just put out this really like heavy psychological story, and then you put out this little sweet, sexy novella. Like they want more of that, but they don't realize how emotionally taxing it is to write a book like that. It takes everything out of you mentally. And so I can't keep up the pace that I do while also doing those heavy, dark stories. I have to spread them out a little bit because otherwise I'd just be depressed all the time. Yeah. So I have to sprinkle in some fun, like rom-com. I have some rom-coms. I mean, like I just have to sprinkle in other things to give balance so that I can keep going and not get burned out or get overwhelmed or depressed or whatever. And it's been working for me and it's fun. I mean, so.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
But what do you do outside of that when you're not writing? You need to have that refocus and that balance. What are some things that you're probably going to do this week?
Well, I like to read, obviously, and so
Yeah.
I read a lot, like probably more than most readers. I mean, I try to devour books like every night.
Wow.
My husband and I were like really into, well, and that's why I read short books, like a lot of
Hmm.
short novellas, so I can finish and be done. But like my husband and I, we are big music fans, so we also a lot of times just listen to music just to kind of clear our brains. We watch all the shows that ever existed in the world because we watch a lot of TV. So I mean, we're
Hmm.
Game of Thrones and Walking Dead and just like all those shows, and we've watched everything on Netflix. We're just like that, and I love graphic design. Sometimes when I'm feeling like I can't write, I get on there and I just start designing stuff. So, I mean, I have other creative outlets and things that inspire me and keep me grounded. And then, of course, I've got my wild kids and they keep me entertained. And we go to the water park and we do things. So it's like, it's just, all kinds of stuff to kind of keep my mind fresh and happy.
Yeah, it sounds like you definitely have some other things to kind of to give you that balance. So that's good. I can't believe you can read a book a day and you binge on Netflix. I don't even know how you have time to do that. So I'm assuming you like Orange is the New Black. Are you an Orange is the New Black fan?
We watched some of those and then my husband got bored of it, so we stopped.
Oh, well, I mean, well, that's awful.
I know, yeah. So but we've watched some of those. I mean, probably the first couple of seasons.
Okay, well, my mom and I just started watching it, so um, I'll let you know what I think. I think they're on season 5 now, or
Oh gosh,
something like
yeah.
that. I'm brand new to Netflix. Like, it's been out for a while, and everybody's like, you need to be on Netflix. And I'm like, I don't watch TV, so why would
Yeah.
I get Netflix? But like you, for balance, I need to just watch some mindless TV sometimes and
Hmm.
just, have a glass of wine and call it a day.
Yeah, true.
So, yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much again, like I said, for stopping by and chatting with us. Please tell everybody how they can find you on social media if they want to reach out to you and kind of follow up with you.
Like right this second?
Yeah, like I know you're on Facebook. Everybody, she's on
Yes.
Facebook.
Yes. I'm on Facebook and Twitter and all those Instagram and Pinterest. My Pinterest boards are out of control. Like I have so many pins, you would go bananas if you ever went over there.
I have yet to understand Pinterest.
Well, I pin a lot of food, so
Okay, you're a foodie.
oh yes, definitely a foodie. And I mean like I have email and I have my website. I mean most people reach out to me on Facebook. That's just where they find me. And I'm normally when it's not so chaotic, I'm very active in the book community and I try to, support blogs and readers and authors. Like I just want to like the book place is my happy place and I want it to be everybody else's happy place too. So I try to be involved, so you can find me there.
And make sure you find her under K Webster. That is
Hmm.
what she writes under. And should we mention your group? Do we want to mention your reader group?
Yeah, I have a readers group called Crazy for K Webster's Books, and that's crazy spelt with a K. Um, and everybody, we try to, like I've always said, that group is their group. Like it's their group because, I want everybody to feel I want everybody to feel a part of it, like I feel like if everybody feels involved and they can post things and if they don't get the inside jokes of certain books, I try to tell people what those are so nobody feels left out. And I people like if they'll come to me and say, well, one of this author's having this book come out, can she do a giveaway? And I'm like, yeah, like just like I want it to be like a happy book place, and I'm always trying to like give book recommendations that I loved, and I want people to have a place to talk about their achievements or their funny stories. It's just a fun place. And I mean, I love my group. It to me sometimes when I can't take the stress of everywhere else, I just go hang out in my group.
Yeah.
So,
So if you guys are interested in becoming a part of the group, go and check out Crazy for K Webster's books. It's a really good group of people in there. There are lots of fun. I'll tell you that. There are lots of fun. And be sure that you stay up to date with Bookin' Around Town. We are on Facebook at Bookin'. There's no G. It's Bookin' Around Town. Also on Twitter at Bookin' Around TWN. And also on Instagram, Bookin' Around Town. And this has been a special edition. You can catch Bookin' Around Town every Sunday afternoon at 5 p.m. Eastern. Is that right? No, at 3 o'clock. I don't even know what time my own show comes on. It's 3 o'clock Central Standard Time on Sunday. So be sure you're following us on Spreaker. You can also download all episodes on iTunes and Google Play. And we are now streaming live on iHeartRadio and TuneIn. So you can find us everywhere. Thanks again, everybody, for listening. Until next time, keep booking.
Thank you.